Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Cyber Revolution podcast. Thanks for joining us yet again. I'm Adam Hewitt, the CEO of Cyber Revolution, and today I'm joined by a superstar student of ours, Ziggy Rabina. Ziggy, how are you?
Doing well, thanks. Yeah, hectic coming off the long weekend. Big day at work, but very good.
It is a gift and a curse, the long weekend. You always love it at the time, and then for the work week, it being a short 4-day week, you're like, oh, I've now got to jam 5 days into 4 days. And for someone like you who is busy and learning a new trade, that makes it a little bit difficult.
Definitely. But it's all worth it. So
It is worth it. It was a great long Easter break, long Easter.
Definitely. Lots of study was done during the Easter break for me.
Oh, well done. Good effort. The reason we're having Ziggy on the podcast today is Ziggy has landed her first role in the industry after changing careers. So as I usually do, we've decided to get her on the podcast, talk about her experience of not only studying, landing a new role, only recently just started this job. So we're not going to dive really too deep into what you're doing or what you've learnt just yet. Maybe we can get you back on the podcast in 6 or 12 months' time to talk about that. But before we get into all that, I just want to give our new listeners of the podcast a bit of an overview of who this is for. We're finding that we're getting a bunch more listeners each week, which is great. We're getting a lot of feedback from people in the review section, which is great. So keep that coming. Cyber Revolution, we are Australia's only dedicated cybersecurity training and placement institute. We specialize in helping people find their first job in cybersecurity. Over the years we've been doing this, we get absolutely blasted with questions each and every day through whether it's our social media, calling us up directly on this podcast specifically as well around how someone can change careers into cybersecurity. I think, and Ziggy, it might have been the case for you, it can be a bit overwhelming changing careers.
Definitely. There's certainly been moments where I'm like, what have I done? But I'm like, you've made the decision. You can keep doing it. You can make it.
And so like that process of changing careers comes with a lot of questions. So way that I thought we could maybe answer those questions to the masses is start a podcast. So this podcast is for anyone who is thinking about a career change into cybersecurity, doesn't know how to do it. They don't know what certifications they need to get. They don't even know what cybersecurity is. So this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to break down some of those common misconceptions and answer those questions and essentially help people land their first job in this awesome industry. So if that resonates, if that sounds interesting, then this is the podcast for you. Okay, Ziggy, let's get into it. I want to start from very beginning where I do with all of our guests. And that is, I guess, tell us a little bit more about what you were doing before you joined Cyber Revolution, maybe even before you decided you wanted to join into our program. What were you doing for work?
I was in veterinary science. I was a veterinary nurse. So that is where I started my career. 8 years in the veterinary industry, straight out of school. That's where I went and I loved it. It was great. But after 8 years, I kind of found that I felt like it was kind of coming to an end point for me. I'm sure anyone listening can imagine it gets difficult emotionally over time, working with animals in difficult situations. It's a bit heartbreaking at times. And I just felt like I needed to make a change. And I have always been very interested in tech. I've always been that tech person at every workplace who's called on to try and fix things. And so I started talking to some friends and to get a bit of an idea. But so for me, veterinary industry had been pretty much my sole career since out of school before I made the decision to change.
That must be really tough, right? Getting into that space and seeing a lot of, being involved in a lot of sadness. My wife is a nurse. She is in recovery. So typically gets to see people recovering and doing on the flip side of all of that. But I remember talking, she was deployed, as they use the word, to ICU through COVID as all nurses. And it really did affect her, and rightly so. And it does for a lot of nurses in that space. So I guess that was the main reason you decided to change. It was just too much.
Yeah, that was a big thing for me. Yeah, like the emotional burden, but probably also the quality of life, kind of like work-life balance is, as I'm sure anyone in healthcare knows, is quite minimal. And I was just like, after 8 years, I was like, I would really like to have just a little bit more ability to have like a public holiday or a weekend where I'm not working or overnight.
And why cybersecurity? You said you spoke to a few friends. What was it specifically about cyber?
Yeah, so I spoke to a few friends who were in the industry, and actually like a brother-in-law who was at the time transitioning from like a long time in IT more towards cyber. And he just had a lot of really interesting things to say about it. And through one of my roles in the veterinary industry, where I was actually working like a technical veterinary role, I had a little bit of experience with cyber. And as soon as I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. Like, I really like that idea. And I also just really like the idea of trying to help like organizations and people be safer and more secure as well. So I think that's what drew me in.
Awesome. So that feeling of, we hear this a lot. We actually polled our students, and the number one reason why they enjoy working in cyber so much is the fulfillment. It does seem a bit corny, but you are actually helping people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's why I got into veterinary industry, because I wanted to like help animals and their owners feel like safer and happier. And it's very different industry, but it's still got the same goal, I think. So,
okay. So you started talking to friends, assuming you did your research, looking around as people do. Why did you decide to join Cyber Evolution, I guess, over all of the other training providers out there?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a funny one. I think I wasn't quite sure where to start, and I was considering like doing a degree in cyber, like kind of placements. And actually there was a couple of things through like recommendations from people in the industry who are actually like, don't do a degree. It'll take a long time. You'll have a lot of HECS debt and you'll hardly have any like hard skills coming out of it. So that was part of it. And I think also when I was looking, one of the things that just like Cyber Evolution kept popping up on my Instagram, it was just like really consistent. And I was like, I feel like the world is trying to tell me something here.
Yeah, all the Instagram algorithms.
Yeah, all the targeted advertising, because I've been Googling about cybersecurity, like study solutions a lot. And yeah, I felt like what I saw of Cyber Evolution was quite like a holistic offering. I was a little bit unsure, kind of, I guess, like just how to approach it. You know, a bit of the you don't know what you don't know. I wasn't even sure like where to start. And so I felt like what I saw Cyber Evolution offering, and when I first spoke to one of like the consultants, they seemed to, be offering something that was like really kind of helped to guide people through it. And I felt like from the position I was in, I was like, that's what I need. I don't know even where to start. So I need some help to know where to start.
And this is what I mentioned at the start when I was doing the intro before around why we do this podcast. A lot of people still think that I need to do a degree. I need to go to university full-time, 3 years, become an expert to get into that space. And so I'm really glad that you did your research, and I'm really glad that our the algorithms did follow you, and you decided, because you've obviously just got the outcome that we're looking for. And I know that you're almost finishing your studies. You've sat 4 of your 5 exams and passed those. We've got 1 more left. You're in the fortunate position that you've managed to land a role even before finishing all of those certifications. Tell us a little bit about the entry-level job that you've just landed.
I was like, I don't want to wait till I've finished studying. I want to like start now. And so I was searching for roles, wasn't really looking or even expecting to kind of go straight into a focused cybersecurity role. But I was looking at other options, and I saw some roles come up for IT analysts. And so I was having a look into them, and was lucky enough to land a role with government organization in their IT service desk. So I'm now working as a service desk analyst with them. We're in a great team who I really love. So really happy about that. I started at the end of January.
End of Jan. So what are we now? Start of April. How's the first 2 months been?
Oh, it's been great. Like, I would say huge learning curve, predominantly learning all of their systems, I think is a big thing. Like, I'm really glad that I have the knowledge just that I have so far from the certifications, because I can't imagine going into that kind of role without that background knowledge now. I'm like, wow, that would have been so difficult. But learning all the systems, getting like all of the training, it's been really great. And I feel like I'm already learning so much. I feel like you just kind of get caught up in this sweep of like training and learning all these things every day. But it's really interesting, really enjoying it.
It's funny you say that, because we do have some, there is the perception sometimes that, there's so many roles within the cyber and IT space at the moment. Why do I even need to do certifications? Can I just get into it straight away? I guess, what would you say now, knowing what you know, to those people? Do you think having those skills and the certifications helped you land this job?
Absolutely. I think probably like 2 things I'd say. One is like, even if you did manage to land a role, I think unless you have previous IT experience, like you are doing yourself a disservice by not having that knowledge, because you just be making it so much more difficult. And I think the other thing is like, it's true, there is a huge need for cybersecurity professionals now, but I think there is a huge need for cybersecurity professionals who are knowledgeable. And so without the knowledge and without like those certifications to show that you have the knowledge, unless you have a whole lot of experience to be like, I don't have a certification, but I have 5 years of experience, like it's going to be really hard to land a role without that, I think. So that's where I think having the certifications to show that you have the knowledge is really useful.
Yeah, definitely. And it shows the employer, right, that you're taking it seriously. It's not like we always preach as well here. It's important to show an employer and invest into your skill set, as you said, to set yourself up for success. Because if you just go to an interview and just go, I just want to change jobs because I don't like the industry that I'm currently in, I'm going to try cybersecurity. You'll probably get found out in the interview process. And B, if you don't and you slip through the crack, you're going to be in deep water, and not really enjoy that process and probably not last. How was the interview process for you, right? First time doing it, first time changing careers, was it a bit daunting?
I think the biggest thing for me, and this is probably pretty specific to like government roles, is that it was long and there were a lot of steps to it. And there was actually some, which I wasn't really expecting, there was actually like some technical assessments during the process. So I think that's something that without the prior experience of like labs and study, I don't think I would have been able to perform as well in those assessments.
Okay, so you actually had some technical assessments that you had to complete.
That's right. So yeah, basically them like establishing your base knowledge, I guess. So,
and you found that what you'd learned within the training, the certifications matched into the assessment in the interview process.
That's right. I feel like that was really helpful. And I think like something that I probably would say to anyone who is applying for a job is like, also like your skills are really important, but also the way that you present yourself is really important. And the feedback I got out of the interview process was like, the fact that you have the certifications and like the knowledge is really helpful, but also like soft skills are really important. Like, yeah. And I'm like, I think your face looks like you know what I mean right now.
I preach this. People listening, if there are some people out there that listen to every podcast episode. Hopefully there are. I think there are. I say this almost every episode. This is our secret sauce. We very, very much focus on, because every one of our students doesn't have cybersecurity experience. That's why they come to us to the first job. So if you're in an interview process, you don't want to say, I don't have any experience. You don't want to talk about things you don't have. How can you talk about the things you do have, these transferable skills? And we kind of have to mold that to make sure that they are transferable and how you can kind of hit the ground running in that aspect in your cybersecurity role.
That's 100% like very much that I think like me having transferable skills, like soft skills, and also, if I could say, I can manage like an emergency medical situation, those skills are pretty transferable to handling and like cybersecurity incident. Like there's a lot of really relevant skills there as well. So I think being able to see where your skills, because like everyone has career skills when they're changing careers, being able to see how you can showcase those skills in a way that will be like positive for your interview process, I think is something that I found really helpful.
100%. And for anyone listening in, obviously, whether you're a student of ours or you're not, I would challenge you to actually really have a think about what your transferable skills are. Because a lot of people that come to us like, I'm a tradesman, there's no transferable skills. I'm a dentist, there's no transferable skills. I work in a warehouse, there's no transferable skills. Trust me, they are all around you. You just need the confidence, right? And I guess the process to know how to extract those, which is what we do for our students in our job placement program. Did you have sessions with Hugo? Did he help you with your resume?
He'd helped me with my resume for the first round of when I applied for CyberCX. And then because I was just like, I really want to get into the industry now, I was just applying for a whole lot of jobs myself. But I think I am lucky. This is like also is transferable skills. Like, well, in my time in the veterinary industry, I was in a fair few different roles, and that is great experience for interviewing. And so like, even just, I've also like, just apply for jobs and interview for them. And like, even if you don't get them, that's great experience for interviewing. The more practice makes it better. So.
what's that Michael Jordan quote? You only miss the shots you don't take.
Yeah, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. Yeah.
Right. We always say that to our students, and good on you for having that, right? Because typically the process here is you have to finish the course, then you go through our job placement program, get land role within our placement partner organizations. But like we always promote, if there's roles available and you want to be applying for roles whilst you're studying, or even an opportunity comes up, absolutely go for it. It's it's an opportunity.
Yeah, go for it. And I think like for me as well, I found I had when I was interviewing, like I was very clear about the fact that I was studying so that roles would know. But I think that helps as well to show like you're invested. It's not just like snap, like spur of the moment decision. You'd be like, I'm going to join cybersecurity. Like you're actually committed. You're in the process of working on it. So I think that's really good.
That, to be honest, that goes, I know from speaking to the heads of HR, heads of recruitment within our placement partner companies, that is massive to show that that's not just, you're not just in it for because it's the hot topic and it's a mega trend and you're like, oh, I'm going to try this thing. You've actually invested time and money into this, and so you're taking it seriously. So that goes a long way. On, I guess, this pathway of why you've been successful, and I think I know why as well. I actually asked Cerise, your student support officer, on her thoughts why that is. Before I go into that, why do you think you were successful within your studies and learning a role?
So for me, when I decided I wanted to transition careers, I was like, this is a big decision. And like, I've always been in the same career, but like, I took the decision to do it really seriously. And I was like, okay, I'm committing to this. And I made like a very structured plan of how I would study and when I would study, and really just focusing on like, no, I'm going to get this much done, and trying to be really disciplined with myself. I think that probably helped for me, the way that I study in a very structured way. I take notes like constantly while I'm studying. I have literally Google documents of like 200 pages of notes for each certification that I've created. So I could just like control F keywords and I generally like practice exams. I'll do all of the available questions and then I will go back through all the ones I got wrong and research them so I can fill in my knowledge. I think I'm just very diligent, and I think that helps. Another thing, honestly, for me, I have to say is like, I am really lucky that I have a really supportive partner. And I think that is honestly like, that's not something that people can just get. But like, I think that's been a big help to me, honestly, as well, is someone like cheering me and being like, you can do this.
Of course, because there's tough times, right? You're studying at home, you're also working, you need that support, and it's a teamwork. So I'm glad to hear that you've got that network. The word that Cherise kind of echoed what you said, but the main word that she used was, very thorough and consistent within your studies. We say it all the time. I think you have to have that consistency, have a plan. Now, everyone's doesn't have to be the same. And a lot of people don't, some people don't like having extra resources to go through, or creating their own notes or downloading a transcript of the course content. Have to tick all of those boxes. It's, different for everybody. You've got your own process and it's worked, which is nice.
Yeah. And I think once I'd done the first exam and I was kind of like, oh, okay, this is going to be my process. And I just kind of stuck with it. And there was certainly times when I was like, oh man, like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can memorize all this information. But after the first one, I was kind of like, okay, I just need to like trust the process and trust that I will get there and it will happen. It will all absorb.
We see so many students who, within that first 6 weeks, or they're studying their CompTIA Plus, the first certification, and they almost overstudy and overthink, and they're like, oh, I'm not ready. And we have to give them a little bit of a push and say, trust me, trust the process. We've done this for thousands of people. It will work. You just have to get over that first hump. And then afterwards, you see their shoulders relax. They're like, okay, I can do this now. And then they're off and racing.
Yeah. And it gets easier. I think like when I did the A+, I was like, oh man, this is so much information that I've never needed to think of. But now I actually think like as you build up the information, it makes more and more sense, I think. And it's not that every single time you have to be like, oh man, like I have never heard of this thing before. Now you're like, oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, it's all just a skill, right? And on that, you had zero prior IT knowledge, certifications, experience. Were you nervous about going through that process of learning new skills? Was it daunting?
I am someone who really enjoys learning new things. Like in my career, I haven't ever really been happy to kind of be in a static role and not be learning and kind of like growing my knowledge base. So I think that idea I actually found quite exciting, like the prospect of gaining new knowledge. And I am someone who does like to learn for knowledge's sake as well. I think there's been times throughout it where just where like the knowledge of how much I need to actually learn has been daunting, like looking at all of, like, literally my wall is full of like A4 pages of notes that I've written and stuck up on the wall. Um, like there has been times when I've looked at like all of the crypto algorithms and all the hashing algorithms and be like, how am I possibly ever going to remember how many bits each one of these algorithms is? And then it just happens. So yeah, I think for me, the thought of learning new things wasn't daunting. I thought that was exciting, but there's been steps along the way where I have felt like it was just so much to learn.
I think that's bang on. I mean, obviously, about cybersecurity is important to enjoy learning. You're going to have to do that year in, year out, and it can be a little bit daunting. But I always say this: my number one tip and if you're a student listening, a new student listening, is yes, the end goal is to land a job like Ziggy has, right? That's what everybody wants. But enjoy the process of getting there. Enjoy the process of learning these skills because they're so crucial, right? And so if you can break it down each week, each month, even each day, then you can lean in and enjoy it. On that, what did you enjoy most about your studies? Was it the lectures, the labs, the mentors, the support?
I got to say, I think I really developed a fondness for some of the like virtual lecturers, like Wes and Ronnie, and just some of them. That was probably like I kind of enjoyed at one point, like just seeing them each day and being like, oh yeah, that's my friend.
They're pretty engaging, don't they, for online?
They do so good, yeah. And I think so. That's probably the part I really enjoyed. I think as well for me, I did really enjoy the virtual labs as well. Like I think they really added something extra, and I found that being able to actually do the practical process really helped imprint the like procedures and like the syntax and so on into my mind. So I think that's a part that I really enjoyed as well. And passing the exams, that's one of my favorite parts.
No, the practical stuff is important. You retain 70% more information once you can practically do it. So the labs are crucial. Okay, great. And I know we're running out of time. We've gone a little bit over time, but that's fine. And so for somebody listening in who might be thinking about a career change, they might have been in your position that you were in, 10, 11 months ago and sitting on the fence, what would be your 3 top tips for that person?
For me, probably number one is like research, like really research what it is that you're looking to get into. And if it is cybersecurity, like figure out the reasons why. Because I think that's an important thing. And when study is hard and when you feel really overwhelmed, I think that is something that will help you feel like you can stick with it. If you know the reasons, like, why am I wanting to do this? Like, versus it just being like, oh, I thought I'll try something new. Like, that's, totally reasonable. But I think having it something to stick in your mind to be like, I know I want to do this for this reason. That's been helpful to me when kind of like I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm like, oh God, there's so much to do. And I kind of keep in my mind, like, this is why I want to do this. I think that's really important. I think for me, also, I would say, like, to find, see if you can find a network of people who are interested in the same areas or like the same industry. Like for me, I joined the Australian Women in Security Network.
Okay, the AWSN, they're great.
Yeah, they are great. Yeah.
Shout out to Jackie Listow, the founder of AWSN. Yeah, amazing. I know Jackie, she's great.
Yeah, it's so good. And I feel like that, just having that support there and also being able to have role models of people who are already in the industry and are succeeding, I think that's been something that's really helpful for me. And I think thirdly would be, if you're going to be jumping into it, like, trust the process and know that there will be times when you're like, have I made the biggest mistake of my life? What am I doing? But just like trust yourself and trust that you will get through it. Don't try and compare yourself to other people, I think is a really important one. Like, trust that you are doing the best you can and you will succeed if you just stick with it.
Stick with it. Be consistent. Amazing. And you know what? I love the first point that you made. And I asked this question to all of our guests that have come on, and we're coming up close to 50 episodes of this podcast. And I shot a podcast earlier today with one of our other students who just landed a role, Leo. And he said the same thing. He said, find your why and like find your North Star. And I haven't had those two to memory. I haven't had that response in 90% of the podcast. And I've had two of them today and I love it. Like it's so good to hear. And it's something for anyone listening who, you know, is thinking about a career change. They might be hating their current job. That is not really the best reason just to jump into cybersecurity. It obviously shows that you need to change, but you need to do your research and talk to our team and talk to people and talk to ideally people in the industry like you did to find out a bit about it so it can actually tick the boxes internally for you. Like you said, you're ticking the box of feeling fulfilled in your role.
Make sure it's right for you.
Make sure it's right for you. That's amazing. Great advice and perfect to end, I think. But thanks so much, Ziggy. I know, some nuggets of gold in there, and I know that you are incredibly busy. So I really do thank you for your time, and I know a lot of our listeners will as well. So appreciate it.
You're most welcome. Thank you for having me. It was great to be here.
Our pleasure. We're going to have you back on in like a year's time, and you can talk about all of the stuff that you've learned.
Sounds great. Yeah, will do.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, everyone, for listening. If you did like this episode, please like, comment, subscribe, keep the reviews up. We're loving seeing those come through. And also the questions. It's always good to hear from the listeners. Ask questions. Let us know what you would like us to cover, and I'll be able to do that for you. If you want to know more about the job placement program that Ziggy went through, all you need to do is head to cyberevolution.com.au, leave your details there, and someone from the team will be in touch. Thanks for listening.